This timing belt replacement was done on a 2012 Peugeot 208. It's the 3-cylinder model. This is a general overview of the engine bay before we start work. The timing belt can be viewed through the oil filler cap, as you can see there on the left near the engine mount. So firstly, we're going to jack up the car, remove the offside road wheel using a 17mm socket, remove the inner splash guards and make safe the vehicle using axle stands. So placing the trolley jack onto the jacking point under the front of the car and removing the 5 wheel nuts. Not forgetting the locking wheel nuts, which I forgot and then had to search the car for. Having the locking wheel nut, if you find the road wheel won't come off, give it a damn good kick. Then remove the inner splash guard using a Torx 20 driver. I also use an interior trim tool to remove the plastic clips. Now to remove wheel nut. Once all the screws and clips are out, the inner wheel arch should just come out with a little bit of twisting and fiddling around. The crankshaft's pulley can clearly be seen along with the air conditioning pulley, and there's also the windscreen washer fluid bottle. Access is fairly easy. Being the 3-cylinder engine, there is plenty of space at the ends of the engine. Here's all the parts labelled. Now to remove the air filter box. 10mm socket and a flat bladed driver for this. The air duct is released by 2 plastic clips, which are quite fiddly, I found. Remove the air filter box. That's 10mm. Here's the bit that I found quite fiddly. I was trying to push both those clips in at the same time and put it off without breaking the clips. With the air filter removed, you can now see the throttle body and also the pipes leading to the internal heater matrix. Now to remove the 3 spark plug coil packs using an 8mm socket and disconnect the wiring plugs. Probably a good idea to disconnect the battery at this point, which I had to do later on. Okay, remove the coil packs. So 8mm. Unclip them, lift the clips up. Removed. Now to clear some of the items that are attached to the inlet manifold, such as the breather pipes and electrical connections. That's good to remove that. Using an 8mm socket, remove the 5 rear inlet manifold bolts. Remove the 2 front manifold bolts as well, using a 10mm socket. Also disconnect the throttle body multi-plug. And there's a short pipe on the right of the manifold that needs an 8mm socket to remove that. I found this to be a very fiddly job to try and do, having to use a torch and a mirror to see where each of the 5 bolts was, and then trying to use your sort of memory and feel where that was, and then unscrew them one by one. Bolt number 2 coming out. After giving the engine a good hug, bolt number 3 comes out. That's the short bolt that holds the metal bracket on the back. Looks like number 4's coming out. And lastly, number 5. There's also a cable connector clip on the rear of the manifold. That needs to be unclipped, which is quite a fiddly job to do. Then the two 10mm nuts at the front of the manifold. This is 10mm. Probably better to put them in a safe place in case they fall on the floor. Unclipping the wiring harness to the throttle body. Don't forget to remove the short pipe on the right of the manifold using an 8mm socket. There is some rubber O-rings on this item. That's 8mm. I was really struggling to remove this inlet manifold. There just didn't seem to be enough space under the bulkhead. I should have probably removed the battery first, which is what I would advise. It even crossed my mind whether or not I could remove the left engine mount just to be able to pull the engine forward enough to allow this inlet manifold to slip out. It appeared that the coolant hose going to the heater matrix was just a little bit in the way. Seems to be stuck on the coolant hose. Time to drain the coolant. The coolant hose is clipped on, which can be unclipped with a flat bladed screwdriver, but I was still struggling with this manifold. Now the battery seemed to be in the way. Here's the spring clip that holds it on. Now the battery seems to be the problem. In hindsight, the battery should have been removed at the start of the job, but now I've got to do it. So using a 10mm socket, time to remove the battery. Seems a bit fiddly to remove the battery. There's like a plastic wedge shape at the bottom, and you have to remove a plastic clip by lifting it upwards, and then you can push the wedge back to get the battery free. And here's the plastic wedge. The liquid in the battery tray was just remains of cleaning the engine before I started the job. I also had to remove 3 bolts on the battery tray so the tray would become loose. Okay, take the battery tray out now. We got there at last. Number 5 just holds the bracket in place by the look of it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that little one there. At the rear right of the cylinder head cover there is an earth point. That needs to be removed using a 10mm socket. Disconnect the 3 injector wiring plugs and other items attached to the cover. Then remove the 19 cylinder head cover bolts using an 8mm socket. Here is the earth lead. I use an interior trim tool just to remove the plastic cable holders. These are quite stubborn because they had like little teeth on the underside that really bit into the plastic. Being careful here, as this is the fuel pipes that are connected onto the plastic cover. Now to remove all the head cover bolts using an 8mm socket. 8mm. This is 10mm, the earth point. This is the earth bolt that the lead bolts onto. Not forgetting the 3 bolts that are central to the cover. The head cover should just come off with some gentle tapping. Just be careful not to damage the orange seal as you lift the cover up. That seal